Welcome back to the deep dive. This time we're diving into entrepreneurial business growth,
Right?
really getting into what it takes to scale a business using the book Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson.
Okay.
We'll break down his 4 stages of growth,
Yeah.
but we're not just going to summarize.
Right.
We're going deep on the tactics and mindset shifts you need at every level.
Yeah. What's so interesting about Masterson's approach is that he doesn't sugarcoat the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
He really tackles those moments of self-doubt,
Uh-huh.
the mistakes you're going to make,
Yeah.
and the need to constantly adapt.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's refreshingly honest.
Totally.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in.
Okay,
Stage 1.
Okay.
Masterson calls this infancy.
Okay.
Your business is generating anywhere from $0 to $1 million in revenue.
Right?
It's exciting, but man, it's a steep learning curve.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Masterson says the main problem here,
Yeah.
you just don't know what you're doing yet.
Yeah. It's true. You might have a fantastic product or service,
Yeah,
but there are so many ways to trip up in those early days.
right.
And I think the biggest hurdle is making that very first profitable sale.
Totally. And it has to be profitable,
Yes.
not just a sale.
Right. You have to prove there's demand.
Exactly. And that you can actually deliver on it.
Yeah.
And Masterson's advice for tackling this:
Okay.
forget about perfecting your website or getting fancy business cards.
Mm-hmm.
Spend 80% of your time on selling.
80%.
80%.
Wow, that might sound extreme,
Yeah.
but it really underlines his point. Validates your idea
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the market before you get bogged down in the details.
Yes.
He calls this finding your optimum selling strategy,
Mm.
which sounds pretty technical.
It does.
So what does that really mean?
Well, it's all about figuring out that sweet spot where your ideal customer, your pricing, and your marketing channels
Right.
all align to bring in the most qualified leads.
Yeah.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use the same marketing strategy to sell luxury cars as you would handcrafted jewelry, right?
Exactly.
Kinda-
Got to find that right approach.
Yeah, and Masterson actually highlights a great example.
Okay.
Alex Tu, the 21-year-old who created the $1 Million homepage.
Oh, yeah, back in 2005.
Back in 2005.
I remember that.
He sold individual pixels on a website for advertising.
Yeah.
It was a simple idea.
Yeah.
But he tapped into the novelty of the early internet and cleverly marketed it,
Yeah.
hitting his $1 million goal within 5 months.
Wow.
Now I know what you're thinking.
What's that?
Easier said than done, right?
Of course.
Like, how do we do this?
Yeah.
Masterson himself admits that his early publishing ventures were far from perfect.
Yeah.
But he relentlessly focused on getting his products in front of the right audience.
Right.
It led to massive growth, taking his company from a small startup to a multi-million-dollar enterprise.
Yeah. So what happens when you hit that first million?
That takes us to stage 2, which Masterson calls childhood.
Childhood.
You're bringing in between $1 million and $10 million in revenue.
Okay.
You've got a taste of success.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've even got a product that's really taking off.
Right.
But the danger here is becoming what he calls a one-product company.
Interesting.
So it's that classic entrepreneurial dilemma. You found something that works,
Right.
but how do you avoid becoming complacent?
Mm-hmm.
How do you replicate that initial success without spreading yourself too thin?
Okay, so that's where innovation comes in.
Yeah.
Masterson stresses that you need to constantly evolve.
Yeah.
But he's not talking about radical reinvention every time.
Okay.
He advocates for what he calls the one-step removed principle.
Okay, now you've got to break that one down for me.
Right, one step removed.
What is that all about?
Imagine you own a successful steakhouse.
Okay.
You've nailed the menu, the ambiance, the customer service.
Right?
Using the one-step removed principle, you could launch a seafood restaurant next door. You're leveraging your existing expertise in restaurant management,
Got it.
but offering a new experience to attract a wider customer base.
So it's not about coming up with a completely unrelated business idea. It's
Yeah.
about finding these smart variations and extensions that build on your strengths.
Exactly.
It's like taking your winning formula and tweaking it to create something new and exciting.
Exactly.
I like it.
Masterson himself used this principle in his publishing business.
Oh, yeah.
They took the successful format of their initial newsletter and created a whole series of new ones,
Smart.
tailored to different interests.
Okay.
He says this one strategic move helped them jump from 8 million to 20 million in sales in just 1 year.
Wow. Talk about impactful growth.
Yeah.
But how do you keep that momentum going?
Right.
Especially when things start to get a little Well, chaotic.
That brings us to stage 3. But before we jump in, let's take a moment to let that sink in for our listeners.
Yeah.
You've got that initial spark, you're building momentum, but what happens when things start to feel a little too big to handle?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah,
And something we will be tackling in the next part of our deep dive.
that's right.
So stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Okay, so we're back and ready to tackle stage 3, which Masterson calls adolescence.
Adolescence.
So your business is hitting $10 million to $50 million in revenue.
Right.
Things are moving fast,
Yeah.
and it can feel like you're constantly putting out fires.
It's where the growing pains really kick in, right?
Ah.
The systems and processes that worked when you were smaller,
Mm-hmm.
they just can't keep up with this rapid growth.
Yeah, they break.
Yeah, you're dealing with more complex operations,
Yeah,
a larger team,
right.
and the stakes are higher.
Totally. And this is where a lot of entrepreneurs hit a wall
Yeah,
because you're used to being the one calling the shots, the hands-on problem solver,
right.
but now you're being forced to let go of some of that control.
And Masterson says the key to navigating this stage
Mm-hmm.
is embracing professional management. Now, for a lot of entrepreneurs, that can feel like a huge leap of faith.
Yeah,
It requires a shift in mindset
right.
from being the doer to becoming the leader,
Yeah.
the strategist.
Yeah, I can imagine it's so hard to relinquish control when you've poured your heart and soul into building the business from the ground up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Masterson argues that holding on too tightly can actually stifle growth.
Interesting.
So he advises entrepreneurs to seek out experienced managers who can bring structure and efficiency to the organization.
Right.
But he really emphasizes the importance of finding people who not only understand systems, but also value innovation.
It makes sense. You don't want to lose that entrepreneurial spirit that got you to this point, but
No.
you also need people who can help you scale up effectively.
Yeah, it's like building a solid foundation for a skyscraper.
Okay, I like that.
You can't just keep adding floors without the right support structure.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
And Masterson goes beyond just hiring the right people. He stresses the importance of clearly defining roles and responsibilities, establishing clear lines of communication,
Right.
setting realistic expectations.
No.
He also talks about the need for documented processes and procedures.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with.
Right.
In those early stages, you're often just winging it, figuring things out as you go.
Yeah.
But as you grow, that ad hoc approach can lead to chaos and inefficiencies.
Exactly. Having those documented processes ensures consistency and quality,
Right.
but it also makes it easier to train new employees and delegate effectively.
Yeah.
It's about creating a framework that allows the business to run smoothly, even when you're not directly involved in every detail.
So you're essentially creating a system that can operate on autopilot,
Hmm.
freeing you up to focus on higher level strategic decisions.
Precisely.
Yes.
And as your business matures and enters stage 4 adulthood,
Okay.
that's when revenue hits $50 million to $100 million and beyond.
Wow.
You'll need that freedom more than ever.
Because this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
You've built this incredible company, you've got a solid team in place, but now you're facing a whole new set of challenges.
Totally.
The growth might start to plateau,
Yeah.
and that entrepreneurial fire that once burned so brightly
Right.
might start to flicker a little bit.
You've climbed the mountain, but now you're looking around and asking what's next.
Right, like what now?
And this is where Masterson throws a curveball.
Okay.
He says the key to navigating this stage is to become an entrepreneur again.
Whoa, that sounds counterintuitive.
I know, right?
You spent years building a stable, successful company,
Yeah.
and now you need to shake things up.
But think about it.
Okay.
That initial spark of innovation, that willingness to take risks,
Yeah?
that's what propelled you to this point.
Right.
And to keep growing,
Mhm.
to avoid stagnation,
Uh-huh.
you need to recapture that energy.
I see what you're saying.
He emphasizes that this stage is about stepping back from the day-to-day operations and focusing on the long game.
Mm-hmm.
It's about acting as a mentor and advisor,
Right.
empowering your team to take ownership,
Okay.
focusing on strategic planning, not just tactical execution.
So you're essentially shifting from being the CEO to becoming the chairman of the board. You're guiding the ship, not steering it.
And that can be a tough transition for a lot of entrepreneurs.
I bet.
It requires a deep level of trust in your team and a willingness to relinquish control.
Masterson talks about this in his own journey.
He does.
He eventually transitioned to an advisory role in his businesses, which allowed him to pursue personal interests while still contributing to their growth.
It's about recognizing that your role has evolved. You're no longer the one making every decision,
Mm-hmm.
but you're still providing valuable guidance and ensuring the company stays true to its core values.
Okay.
And as you step back, you need to think about who will fill your shoes.
You're building a legacy, not just a business.
That's the essence of stage 4. It's about looking
Mhm.
beyond your own tenure and setting the stage for long-term success
Yeah.
for the company and for yourself.
I like that.
It's about finding that delicate balance between stability and innovation,
Yeah.
between control and empowerment.
So how do you actually do that?
Right.
How do you reignite that entrepreneurial spirit when you're leading a massive organization? What specific strategies does Masterson recommend?
Well, that's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in more detail in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But before we move on, I'd like to turn it back to you, our listeners.
Yeah.
What resonates with you most about these different stages of business growth?
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive,
Right.
exploring all the challenges and the triumphs of each stage of business growth.
Yeah.
We talked about that relentless focus on sales in the early days,
Right.
the importance of innovation as you start to scale,
Hmm.
the need to embrace professional management to create a solid foundation.
Yep.
But as we enter this adulthood phase, it's almost like we're coming full circle, right?
It is fascinating how Masterson emphasizes this cyclical nature of growth. Just when you think you've figured things out, you're presented with this whole new set of challenges that require you to adapt and evolve.
Right.
And in this final stage, it's about rediscovering that entrepreneurial spirit that kind of drove you in the beginning.
So you're at the helm of this multi-million-dollar company. How do you actually rekindle that fire?
Right.
What does becoming an entrepreneur again look like in this context?
Well, Masterson suggests a few key strategies.
Okay.
One is to actively seek out new opportunities for expansion.
Okay.
This could involve exploring new markets, developing new product lines, or even launching entirely new ventures.
So it's not about resting on your laurels.
No.
It's about pushing yourself to think bigger and bolder, even when you've already achieved a significant level of success.
Exactly. And this requires a certain level of detachment from the day-to-day operations.
Okay.
You need to create space for yourself to think strategically, to identify those long-term growth opportunities. Masterson also emphasizes the importance of mentoring and developing the next generation of leaders within the company.
It's about creating a culture of innovation and empowering your team to take ownership.
Right.
You're essentially building a legacy that extends beyond your own involvement.
Yeah, he also highlights the importance of finding ways to stay personally engaged and motivated.
Okay.
This could involve pursuing passion projects, taking on new challenges, or simply dedicating time to activities that bring you joy and fulfillment.
So it's about avoiding complacency and maintaining that spark of curiosity that drives true entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
And this resonates with something Masterson mentioned earlier, that analogy of business growth being like moving a train.
Yes.
It takes immense effort to get that train moving from a standstill.
Right.
But once it's gained momentum, it becomes easier to maintain that forward motion.
That's a powerful image, and it speaks to the importance of building a sustainable system that can thrive even without your constant intervention. It's about creating a business that, in a sense, can run itself.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive exploring the nuances of each stage of business growth, from that initial spark of an idea to building a legacy that can outlast your own tenure.
Right.
Masterson offers a roadmap for entrepreneurs at every level.
Yeah, and I think the most important takeaway is that entrepreneurship is not a destination. It's a journey.
Totally.
It's a constant cycle of learning, adapting, and evolving.
And that journey requires resilience, self-awareness, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
Absolutely.
It's about celebrating the wins, learning from the setbacks, and constantly striving to reach your full potential.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as you reflect on your own entrepreneurial endeavors, think about where you are on this journey, what stage are you in, what challenges are you facing, and most importantly, what steps can you take today to build momentum and propel yourself forward?
Great questions to consider.
And that wraps up our deep dive into entrepreneurial business growth.
That's a wrap.
We hope this has provided you with valuable insights and actionable strategies to help you navigate your own journey. Until next time, keep diving, keep learning, and keep growing.
See ya.